We would like to thank you so much for joining today to learn how you can electrify your ride with an affordable pre-owned EV. My name is Annika Osborne, and I am with Cool the Earth. We're an environmental nonprofit with a mission to reduce carbon emissions. Happy Earth Week. While we are big fans of walking, biking, public transit, and carpooling, with our Ride and Drive collaboration, we work to advance the adoption of electric vehicles and e-bikes in a fair and just marketplace. I would like to thank Access Clean California, City of Palo Alto Utilities, and the Transportation Authority of Marin for sponsoring this webinar, and the City of Palo Alto Utilities for sponsoring both our exclusive EV discount program for new EVs and our pre-owned EV savings program for pre-owned EVs. Next. Here's our agenda for today. We'll talk about the benefits of driving electric. We'll get into the details of our pre-owned EV savings campaign, talk a little bit about the incentives available for pre-owned EVs. We'll do a pre-owned, not really a showcase, but we'll sort of give a couple of examples of what pricing looks like for some popular EVs. We'll talk briefly about our new EV discount campaign. We'll discuss why a pre-owned EV makes so much sense right now, and make sure that is the right thing for your lifestyle and budget. And then we'll, at the end, talk a little bit about how to EV, which is charging, which is really important to understand how you'll be charging your EV daily, weekly, when you're on a road trip. So we'll be going over a lot of information today, but not to worry. We'll be sending a PDF of this presentation in our follow-up email with lots of handy links that can help you get started. And if any questions come up, feel free to ask them in the chat, and we'll try to pause a few times in this presentation to answer any questions, and then we'll have more time in the Q&A at the very end. All right, so let's dive in. So there are many benefits to driving electric. In California, our passenger vehicles are the single largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, often representing over 50% of our individual carbon footprint. So when we switch from a gas car to an EV and plug into clean energy, like we can here in the Bay Area, we are taking impactful climate action by reducing carbon emissions and air pollution, both which disproportionately impact our equity priority communities. And while driving electric is better for the planet and for people, there's no sacrifice when you go electric. EV drivers save time, money, and enjoy an improved driving experience. Next. So many people save time with an EV by charging at home or at work and skipping the gas station altogether. And EVs are more fun to drive. What I really like is the extra torque or power that you get when you drive an EV. I can quickly accelerate when I'm getting on the freeway, and then when I want to change lanes, I just power up and glide into where I want to go. It feels very safe. I love the quiet and smooth drive that makes for great conversations when you're on a road trip. And with additional safety features and sensors in these high-tech cars, EVs are some of the safest cars out there. So although early EV drivers paid a high premium for electric cars, today's EV drivers often save money. And here are some reasons why. It costs much less to fuel an electric car. Fueling a gas car can be, I used to say 2 to 5 times more expensive than fueling an EV, but I'm going to say 2 to 7 times more expensive than fueling an EV, depending upon where and when you charge your EV. There are time of use rate plans that you will get on when you get an EV that make charging an EV very affordable. In addition, maintenance costs are 40% less for EVs. It's basically adding windshield wiper fluid and rotating your tires. And then there are some incentives available which can bring down the cost of purchasing or leasing an EV. So this slide shows an example of the total cost of ownership. It's a great little tool that I will share with you at the end of the presentation, where you can compare the total cost of ownership for any given amount of time of a gas car and an EV, or even two EVs. Whatever you want to compare. So in this case, I put in that gasoline is $6 a gallon, and that somebody would own this car for 5 years. And in this case, with the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the owner would save close to $8,000 over 5 years versus driving a Honda CR-V. So currently, our organization has an initiative, Ride and Drive Clean. We are offering exclusive EV discounts on new EVs through the end of the month. I'll show a slide about that soon. And we're also offering this pre-owned EV savings program through the end of the month. That's what we're going to be focusing on in this presentation. There are state grants available. They are for income-eligible residents of California. So Clean Cars for All is a retire and replace program. Residents of California, depending upon where you live and how much money you make, you can qualify for up to $12,000 off a new or used EV. And if it's a new EV, it could be a lease or a purchase. There's the Drive Clean Assistance Program for $7,500. Right now, it's fully subscribed for most people. If you live in a disadvantaged community, which is based off of the average income and the amount of pollution burden in that community, you may still qualify for that rebate. Note that for these California grants, you do have to apply for them in advance and receive the grant in hand before you go to purchase the EV. So depending upon where you live and who provides your electricity, there may be additional incentives through your utility and or CCA, your clean energy provider, which we will get into soon. Many of these have income caps as well. However, PG&E has a pre-owned EV rebate for anybody who gets their bill from PG&E can apply to get a $1,000 rebate after you take delivery of your EV. And if you're based on your income, you may be able to apply for a $4,000 rebate, which is really nice. Again, you'll want to check with your local CCA or municipal utility to learn about additional incentives. Many of these, this is the fun part, many of these incentives can be combined for even greater savings. So you would use a savings calculator like this one provided to discover which programs you qualify for. And based on where you live and your household income, total savings on a used EV can reach up to $20,000 off of a used EV. That is specifically if you live in San Jose. For the rest of the Bay Area, it's more like 18,000. So it's really worthwhile exploring what you qualify for, if you qualify for anything. So we learned early on, we've been doing this for about 9 years, but we learned early on that the biggest barrier to EV adoption was cost. So we teamed up with a car concierge service called Cartelligent. They have offices in Sausalito, Walnut Creek, and Menlo Park, and even down in Irvine. And during certain times of the year, they are able to negotiate exclusive discounts on certain EVs. And during those times, we partner with them and we run these exclusive EV discount programs. We have one going on right now on these 4 EVs. So the Kia EV6 and 9, the Subaru Solterra, and the Volvo EX30. Typically, Cartelligent, most concierge services, charge a service fee because they basically take care of the entire transaction for you. And during these discount program times, like now, if you were to purchase one of these 4 EVs on through our program, they will waive their service fee. This is for leasing or buying new EVs. And they can be stacked with other incentives. Sometimes there's a Costco rebate. I think right now you can save up to $21,000 on the Kia EV6 if you lease it or purchase it. So in this case, you do have to be in contract by the end of this month, but you can actually pick up the car in May. I think Sienna just dropped the link there, and I will do that also at the end. So that's for new EVs. We're seeing in the market that there is price parity on gas cars and EVs in the used market. So that means that they are equally affordable. Another thing we're seeing, because some people are a little hesitant to buy a used EV because they're wondering about the battery, but these recent studies have come out that show that battery degradation is much less than it used to be. And another good thing is that EVs now, many of the EVs that have been coming into the market for the last 3-4 years are coming off their leases now, and they have a range of 300 miles. So even with some battery degradation, that might bring it down to 260, 270 miles of total range. So that really helps with range anxiety. Okay, so the offer that we are offering, right now with our partner, Emotion Autos, is they will reduce their concierge fee from to only $99. It's normally $500. They will provide you an unmatched selection of EVs from the nationwide wholesale market, which is huge. They will search on your behalf to find the right EV, and they'll talk to you beforehand to make sure it's the right EV for your budget and your lifestyle. They'll professionally inspect and recondition your EV before delivery, and they will identify and guide you through any available incentives. They provide an optional delivery in the Bay Area and in San Diego, and they're offering an exclusive 10-day, no questions asked return policy. So this is, if you sign up through us, through Ride and Drive Clean on our website, and this is through the end of May. And at this point, I would like to introduce Adam Borison from Emotion Autos to talk a little bit more about pre-owned EVs and how to get an EV.
Right. Thank you very much. I assume you can hear me. Thank you so much, Annika. Let me just briefly give you a little sense of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk mostly about EVs, issues with used EVs, pros and cons, mostly pros, of course. Not going to talk a great deal about our business model and our business. Emotion Autos, happy to do so. Of course, we love the program. We're excited about the program and working with Annika and the other folks. But that's not really the focus here. The focus here is understanding the landscape of used EVs. One slightly humorous introduction would be Annika said that her organization is an environmental nonprofit. We're an unintentional nonprofit. It's a different kind of nonprofit. So yes, anyway, we are in business as a business to make money. Someday we'll do that, but right now we're just skating along happily. So let me just talk about EVs. And again, we're happy to get a lot of questions, but I'll just try to kind of run through the landscape of EVs. First question, I think that is not uncommon, would be, well, geez, I have a lot of choices. I could buy a regular gas car. I could buy a new car. I could buy, a used car. Do I want a used car? And this diagram kind of shows, I think, tries to display in pretty stark terms why a used EV, in fact, for most people, many people, is the right choice. So we have two dimensions, classic consulting approach. We have the fossil ICE car and the EV on the left. We have new and pre-owned vehicles on the top. Upper left, basically, if you were to think about buying a new gas car, it's high cost, consumes a lot of resources to make the car, and it's high carbon. And that's why it's a bright red. Not really a great choice, frankly, on many dimensions. If you think about the two yellow boxes, there are some people that it might make sense. Look, I don't drive very much. I need a big truck. I only drive to Tahoe and back every 6 months. Maybe I don't really want an EV. In that case, you could say, look, get a cheap used car. You're going to still produce carbon, but that be low resources. You're not making a new car, and it's fairly inexpensive if you rarely drive. So that's the upper right side, basically saying, yes, there's some rationale for some people keeping or buying a used fossil car, used ICE car. The lower left, we have, from my perspective as a used car dealer, the situation with a new EV, not against new EVs. Again, especially with Cartelligent, I've worked with them. They're great. Higher cost because it's new, higher resources in a sense because you're making a new car, and it is saving the world from carbon. So that's not a bad choice. We think it's not quite as good a choice as, if you can, getting a used one or pre-owned one. And that's the lower right. Basically, a used EV, and I'll talk more about the various kinds of things you need to be aware of, is low upfront cost, low resources. You're not making a new car. You're recycling, repurposing someone else's car, and low carbon. And from my perspective, for many people, that's the right choice. That's why it's green. I do want to mention at the bottom something that we've learned quite a bit in dealing with a variety of customers. And we want to be upfront with it because, again, we are incredibly strong proponents of used EVs, but they're not the same as new cars or as gas cars. So first thing I should say is a new car has a warranty. It has a bunch of features, not the same as a pre-owned car. You can get warranties, etc., but it's not the same. And importantly, a EV, while we think it's a dominant solution, is not the same as a gas car. So if you're used to basically driving to Los Angeles without stopping ever, that would be hard to do. And you probably can't do that. So that's the kind of thing that you just have to be aware of. And we often find cars that are quite attractive in the used market because people they've not been educated. They haven't been explained. No one has explained to them that it's a different experience. Again, we think a better experience, but it's important, I think, for us to make clear to you, as we do to our customers, that if you buy a used EV, we think it's great. That's what we do. But it won't be the same exactly as a fossil car and or as a new car. It's just different. Better, we think. So that's an important factor. So one thing people ask is, well, geez, what about choices? And I'm not going to go through all these. These are cars that we have sold. So we have sold a lot of different kinds of cars. We know a lot about used EVs because we see and drive and sell and buy almost all of them. So on this, again, I'm not going to go into every one of these. There are issues with each one of these. You might say, well, what's good about this? What's bad about this? Why would I want this? They're small cars. They're big cars. On the left side, they're all electrics. On the right side, they're plug-in hybrids, which, again, I own one. So I'm not against those. But there are many things to think about, and then many choices. Some choices are harder than others. If you want a minivan, you're going to have a tough time. You want a hatchback, you want an SUV, you want a sedan, you want a big car, you want a small car, not a problem. We'll find one for you. So a lot of cars out there, a lot of choices. So what are the key considerations when you think about an EV? And this is not so much from a perspective of us selling you the car, but if you're thinking about a used EV, what do you need to be careful about or think about? And these are 5 of the things that come up in this kind of context and also with our customers. And let me just go one through. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these. I'll go through each of them one by one. So let's talk about the economics. So this is a very similar slide to the one that Annika showed. I think Annika did this, or maybe I did this for a while ago in a different presentation. But it's not easy to find apples to apples comparisons. So I tried to find one that was for a used car, and then the Leaf is obviously the very well-known electric car. The Altima, not entirely dissimilar. Nissan. There are very few cars that you can find that have exactly the same car, both electric and fossil. But these are close. And so what you can see here is, as Annika pointed out, that the true cost of owning an electric car, by and large, is going to be lower. The fuel costs are going to be much lower. Maintenance costs are typically lower. They're not maintenance-free in the sense that all cars now have issues like electronics and have cameras and sensors, and those don't always, they sometimes fail. But in terms of your overall experience, that dramatically lower cost of ownership for an equivalent vehicle. And that's kind of what this shows. And as Annika said, there are websites you can use to compare that for, in your own situation for the kind of cars you're looking for. So this hopefully it's not controversial, but I want to make it clear we are different, and we can talk more about that. And we have learned about the used car business, and I don't want to overstate this case, but I guess what I'd like to say, and I think it's an honest, true statement. It is a very, very shady business, bottom line. Many car sellers, that includes both private party sellers and dealers, are dishonest, incompetent, and uninformed. or uninformed. I just have to be blunt about that. That doesn't mean they're all that way, but if you go out to buy a used EV, I would suggest that you be quite careful. If you buy it from us, that's a much different matter. And again, I'm not trying to impugn all car dealers, definitely not. But I would just say, by and large, when you start looking for used cars from used car dealers, with a few exceptions that I can tell you what those might be, you need to be quite careful. Here's an example. You get a price, advertised price, $22,000, pick a number. Virtually every single dealer, virtually everyone, not all of them, but almost all of them, well, that is not the real price. It's not true. It's just not true. The advertised price you see for a used EV on a website is almost always not true. There's always something you need to add to that. There are a couple of dealers that don't do that, but almost all dealers will charge you more than the advertised price. That will soon be illegal in California, but right now it's not illegal, and so you have to be very, very careful. The same thing is not the same thing. There's similar concerns about mechanics, so you need to make sure to find a good mechanic, and then we can advise you on that. I'm not trying to dissuade you from buying a used EV at all. I'm just saying that the normal, everyday activity in trying to go out and find a good used car requires a lot of effort. And there are resources that you can use, including Ride and Drive Clean, to find good sellers, good mechanics like us, and we're not the mechanics, good sellers, and getting educational resources around being an informed buyer. But I'm not trying to clearly not trying to convince you not to buy a used EV. Just want to make it clear that you need to be very careful when you go out there and look for a used car. And that's probably not a surprise. Battery health. This is a better story than the used mechanics or dealers. By and large, there have been problems with batteries that are legacy that were developed years ago. But most batteries, and I think Annika mentioned this, most batteries have performed much better than expected and last a long, long time. And so the issue of a battery failing is really not a sizable, not that significant an issue by and large. And it also is one that can be avoided in a lot of ways. So battery degradation is really a matter of heat, and heat is a matter of both the charging pattern and the climate. And in our business, and I guess if you were to go out and look for an EV, what I'd suggest you do is look at the history carefully. And this is kind of a bit of an anecdote or a joke, but it's not entirely a joke. If I were searching for an EV for myself or for someone else, I'd try to find an EV that has been home charged in a place like Bolinas, not an Uber driver car in Phoenix or Furnace Creek. So basically what you want is a home charged car in a mild climate, and you can be almost certain the battery will be fine. The bad experiences are when people overly fast charge them in hot climates, and that is not a good thing to do. But you can check the Carfax and find out where the car was kept, and you can know the person who used the car. If they use it personally or not, then you can find a suitable car, and you can actually, of course, check the battery. That you can do tests on the battery. Those are available as well. So I think battery health, in our experience, we now have sold hundreds of cars. We've had essentially zero problems with batteries in selling a lot of cars. So
Adam, while we're on this topic, I see there's a question in the chat about that. Like, before buying an EV, a used EV, how can you tell what the battery, could you talk a little bit more about that? It's
that's a really good question. Yeah.
I want to know if the batteries are okay for their age, plus what warranties remain on the batteries.
Right.
What's the best way to make sure the batteries are good?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, so I should start by saying it is a law that all EV batteries are warranted a minimum of 8 years, 100,000 miles. So against failure. Now, failure is a little bit of a difficult concept. Generally, it's regarded as dropping below 70 to 75% of their initial capacity. So that is something that if you basically have a vehicle that's, let's say, 4, 5, 6 years old, if it declines, let's say, to 85% or 80%, that would not be considered failure. That would be considered okay. I mean, I have a Chevy Bolt that's 2017, I guess it is, and it's got 120,000 miles, and it's still doing fine. So, so the first thing is that basically is you will have a warranty. The warranty covers you for kind of serious failure, but not slow degradation. And then the second thing is you should look at the history and see how the car's been used, which you can do with Carfax or other devices. And then the third thing is there's Recurrent. There are other services that will give you most of the cars that we buy in the wholesale market have a rating. It's not always based on the individual car, but it's based on the history of the car. And Recurrent is the firm that does a lot of this. You can get a score on a battery from a reputable supplier. And again, we have that for many of our cars. So there are many ways of reducing that risk. And again, I would just say we've done hundreds of sales, and we've had essentially, I think we had one problem with the battery out of 300 cars or something like that. So it's pretty rare.
And I was going to just bring in a personal example. About 8 years ago, we bought a Volkswagen e-Golf, and it was a low range one. It started off with like 100 miles of range. It was used. When we got it, it had like 85 miles of range. We kept it for 6 years. We bought it for $15,000. We kept it for 6 years. This was my teenage daughters when they were in high school, drove it, a lot. And there was no battery degradation. And after 6 years, we sold it for $13,000. So we basically spent $2,000 and my girls had a car for 6 years and there was no battery degradation. Well, the problem was when they got to college, now they want to go to Santa Cruz and they want to go farther distances. So then it wasn't useful to us anymore. But it is a great, even a low range EV that's very affordable is a great second car or a great round the town car, great for kids in high school.
And there's another question about what years are okay for batteries. I guess I'm not sure if that means how old can they be or are certain years bad. I guess what I would say is that for the older vehicles, the bad stuff has happened, right? For a Chevy Bolt, there was a recall. And so if you get a 2019 Chevy Bolt, it's not going to have its old battery anymore. It's going to have a new battery. So I would say, yeah, and if you got a 2019 that wasn't a recall battery, but it hadn't been driven very much, I'd say that would be fine. But if I were looking at cars and I see a 2019, I'd say, let me know if the battery has been replaced, which would be great, and or let me understand how much it's been driven, where it's been driven, and 2019 might be fine. And then generally you can get, as we said, you can get some kind of reporting on the battery to say, yes, it's still got 83% of its capacity. It'll be fine. So all those things could lead you to getting a good 2019 vehicle, let's say.
Adam, are you going to talk at all about warranties? Because a question came up. Do you recommend warranties or will that?
Yeah, no, I will talk about that right now. Yes, it did come up. Our company, many dealers offer extended warranties. That's where they make most of their money. We have a third party. We offer extended warranties as well. But that doesn't typically cover the EV part of the car. For most vehicles, the EV battery is warranted by the manufacturer and is still warranted. So again, a 2019 will still have maybe 1 year left on its warranty, but a 2021 or 2022 vehicle is going to have a manufacturer warranty. So you could buy an extended warranty, but that doesn't do anything for you when it comes to the battery itself. That's handled by the manufacturer. So I wouldn't focus on extended warranties if you're worried about the battery. If you're worried about other issues, yes. And then the insurance question, I'll talk about that briefly. Typically for dealers, there's a thing called F&I, financing and insurance. So these are the things that they make money on. But insurance is a strange beast. And maybe some of you that have experience with this can tell me, but some vehicles, and I think it's mostly Teslas, have very high insurance rates because body work is expensive. And apparently that is extended somehow to other EVs. So I have customers coming to me saying how expensive insurance is for them, even though it's just liability insurance. For me, I own several EVs. Our insurance is very cheap. So I think you have to be careful and make sure your insurance company, like your mechanic, like your dealer, is EV savvy and is not overcharging you. But I would say that's an area that we still see people telling us how expensive insurance is, and we can't quite understand it. So I'll come back and answer some of those questions in a bit. Let me go through a few more slides. So let's go to the next slide. So one thing that people talk about a lot is range anxiety, and I wanted to give a kind of a balanced view of that, and I think it's a very easily solved problem, but you have to be careful about it. So the first thing to basically recognize is that Tesla is in a world by themselves. They're in a whole world by themselves. Their network is unmatched. If you want to go on a road trip and you don't have a Tesla, it's a different experience than if you have a Tesla. That is just a known fact. non-Tesla public charging is a work in progress. And this is a study that was done fairly recently that showed about a quarter of all public chargers are not actually working. So you have to be careful if you're going to depend on public charging. That's the bad side. And that's something everyone who has an EV, I think, has had some experience where they drive somewhere, and if they don't have a Tesla, it's hard to charge it up. That's just the way life is. Getting better, but it's not trivial. But the other thing is that home charging is far easier than people think. And I wanted to show you from Amazon a picture of what you can do. You do not need to have an electrician install a massive panel and whatever. If you have access to a regular 120 volt or better a 240 volt, like for a dryer, you can buy on Amazon for a small amount of money, not only a charger, but an extension cord. You can take your cord for 50 feet and charge up your car. And at 240 volts, you get plenty of power, enough to easily charge your car up on a regular basis. 120 volts, also not bad. So we have a lot of customers who think they have to hire an electrician, put in a charger, and spend $5,000 or $500, whatever it takes. And that is much less true than it used to be. So for a couple $100, and if you have a driveway that's close to a plug, you will be in good shape. So that is more and more people are seeing that experience, not the I have to buy a fancy charger for my house. The last bullet, though, is important. If you are driving uphill in a hot climate with the air conditioner on, you are going to see the miles tick away. So it's nice to be, better to be a more patient driver and not rely so much on air conditioning and heating and all that. But you can still do that, but it will cut down the range. And that's just the way it is. You're going to be pulling electric power from the driving the wheels to keeping your air conditioning going. That's just the way life is. But by and large, if you're aware of these things, we have had very few experiences where people are, basically anxious about charging. It can be easily overcome for most, not all, most customers. So let's talk about incentives briefly. We've already covered this. Our experience, we do a lot of work with people that have Clean Cars for All or DCAP awards, also utility awards. These are the kinds of awards that you can get. We help people a lot with those. It varies a lot by zip code and by income. It's rather messy, just to be blunt, but it isn't overwhelming. And many of our customers get $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 off of the price of the car. And we can help you with that. You can also do research on your own, but we can help you with that. Again, we have 3 slides here. I won't go through these next 3 slides. These are basically more details on the program. These programs, they'll be available to you in the package. So we can skip a couple of slides and go I think, next slide after that. So let me just, as I said, we have done a lot with different kinds of cars. We've sold many kinds of cars, both plug-in hybrids and battery electrics. And I just thought I'd show you 2 examples of cars that we've done recently. And this shows you kind of roughly what's going on. So this is a Chevy Bolt, 2020 Chevy Bolt, a great all-American, vanilla, inexpensive electric car, good range. This car had the EV battery replaced in mid-2023, so no worry about that. 33,000 miles, and in our typical scale, about 4.4 out of 5 condition, which is very good. That means it's not new, but it's in very good shape. Because the EV batteries were replaced, it had a new warranty, and it has the very, very strong range. Prices have gone up a lot recently in the EV market with the gas prices, but this car was about $15,000 pre-tax registration and incentives. So that doesn't include tax and registration, which had maybe 10%. Doesn't include $10,000 off or $2,000 off or $4,000 off of that price. The MSRP of this car was originally around $40,000. So we try to find, and we do find, inexpensive all electrics. This is one. Kia Niro, Nissan Leaf has some issues. ID4, Teslas, of course, Polestars. There are a whole bunch of cars that are out there with pros and cons of various kinds. But that's an example of a inexpensive, very, very functional. We have one. I have a Bolt. My wife drives a Bolt. It's white, like that one. Loves it. So that's a great choice. They get harder to find given current conditions, but they're still available. And I'm happy to talk about plug-in hybrids. They're a bit controversial. We have one as well. When we go to Los Angeles, we drive our Kia Niro plug-in hybrid. We drive around town on electricity, but we go to LA, one tank of gas, 50 miles per gallon, roughly 48 miles per gallon. We're happy to do that. We don't have no range anxiety. This is another car that we got for somebody who needed a big car, a big family. And so this is a 2023. It's a Volvo, large SUV, had quite a few miles on it, but in great shape. This has about a 35-mile electric range and a 500-mile plus gas range. It wasn't that cheap. This was about $38,000, but the MSRP is about close to 80. So it wasn't a new car, but it was almost new condition. But again, if you want a plug-in hybrid, there are choices. There's the Clarity, the Prius Prime, the RAV4 Prime, a bunch of choices, a bunch of Volvos. There are a lot of plug-in hybrid choices, which I think are appropriate for some people. Not everyone, better to do an all-electric. But if you live in a place where you can't charge, or you have issues that if you run out of electricity, you're in big trouble, those kinds of things. You live in a rural area, very rural area, plug-in hybrids can sometimes be a good choice, as long as you make use of the electric part when you can. That's kind of the summary. I think that's my last slide, if I remember correctly.
Actually,
but happy to answer some of the questions, or we can go forward. Yeah.
Will you answer the next slide as well? It's basically how it works, and I think you can talk about that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So sign up. You sign up by the end of May. That's the plan. You don't have to buy a car by the end of May, but yeah, we need kind of the sign up by the end of May. Normally, it's a consultative kind of collaborative process, which is difficult to do and hard to do, but that's the way we work. So typically, we have an initial consultation, probably with my colleague Cole, where we get a sense of what you're looking for, what kind of awards you might have or be eligible for, those kinds of things. Then what we do at that point is a bit of formality. It's not a legal document, but we have a one-page document where we ask you to sign saying, this is the car I'm looking for, and here's what I expect you to do for me, and basically expectations that are in line, that we know what we're going to do and what we might do, and ultimately you agree that if we find you a car, you'll consider it, and hopefully you'll buy it. You pay us a service fee, but it's refundable, basically. So even though it's a pretty modest fee, if we don't get you a car, you get your money back. So it's really not an issue. It's just a sign that you're serious about getting a car. Once you sign a letter of intent, which lays out, here's what I'm looking for. I want a Nissan, I want an Aria from last year, one driver, one owner, no accidents, in blue, with the high trim. I mean, you can go to that level of detail. Harder to find the car if you do, but you can say that's what I want, or you can say I don't really know what I want, find me one. That's true too. So we have this kind of range of possibilities. We will then send you information, detailed pictures and reports on the car, and confirm that that works for you. You get a return policy, so you're protected on that as well. We recondition the car, so you're protected on that as well. But you do not get to test drive the car or see the car physically until you get it. That's the difference, right? We are going to take your order. We're going to look across the nation, California, local, etc., and find you that car. We found you a Nissan Aria in Riverside for auction. We're going to get it for you tomorrow. This is what it will cost you. Are you okay with that? Then you say yes. Then we get you the car. You look at the car and you say, that's not what I wanted. I changed my mind. You get almost all your money back. You look at the car and say, oh, it's not what you said. You get all your money back. So you are protected, but just to be clear, you do not get to test drive or see the car physically before you get it. I think that's a bit like Carvana, frankly.
You can go to the dealership and test drive a similar car.
That's for sure. And we absolutely, I wouldn't say demand that. We almost demand that, because the last thing we want you to do is to sit in the car and say, my head hits the top, right? I mean, that we don't want that to happen. So we virtually demand that you have experience with the same kind of car. That's a very good point.
Can I just briefly say just a few things for a little bit about my own experience? So I mentioned before we bought a Volkswagen e-Golf, and at that time I don't think Emotion Autos even existed. And so we went to the dealership. My biggest thing was I don't want a black car because I hate being hot in the summer. And so I looked around at 3 or 4 different dealerships. We knew we wanted the e-Golf. and they only had black cars. So it was easy in one way. I went and test drove the car. I knew exactly what I was getting, and it was black because that's all they had. So my next two used EVs I actually purchased through Adam and Emotion Autos. And I told them exactly what I wanted. I wanted a gray car. I wanted this and that. And I got exactly what I wanted. It was about 5% less than when I was looking at comps online. And the cars have been wonderful. No problems at all. It was great working with Adam and his team. And yes, I did go. My family went, we got a Polestar too with them. So my family went and test drove the Polestar because we hadn't been in one before. So we test drove it. We're like, all right, we like it. We know that we can get this same car from Adam for cheaper. And, we didn't have to deal with the dealership.
Yeah. And again, we don't have to spend too much time on the sales pitch, but I would say, or the non-sales pitch, our experience, we've done this now for quite a long time, for years. And our experience is mostly Annika's. I mean, I can list you many, many people who got the exact car they wanted at a price better than they could have done. That's the kind of thing we strive for. But the market speaks, right? If there is no gray Polestar available, we can't make one out of a whole cloth. So we don't always find exactly what the person wants. That also happens. And it's also true that once in a while, the market, like it is right now, is kind of crazy. So we sometimes say, yes, we thought we could get you a Bolt for $15,000, but right now they're going to be $18,000, and that happens too. So I guess I just want to make it clear: we do everything we can, and usually we succeed. But there's no guarantee we'll find exactly the car you want at the price you want. It doesn't always happen. Much of the time it happens, but not always. Just to be clear. Yeah.
There's a question from Glenn. What does reconditioning entail?
Oh, that's a really good, excellent question. And I want to be clear about that as well. Again, we're pretty proud of the approach we take. So we have a mechanic who we've worked with now most of the time. We have two mechanics, but we have one that we use mostly in Alameda, who is honest and dependable and inexpensive. And we take most of our cars to him, and they do the mechanical safety functions work. We do not take care of cosmetic issues. Scratches, dings, whatever. We don't buy many cars that have a lot of those, but we do not take care of those. We have a long list, though, of the functional issues, which we can show you, and we take care of all those. 12-volt battery, wipers, of course, the steering, brakes, all those kinds of things. But anything that's functional, having a trickle charger, for example, having a tire inflator, having a cargo cover, that might be cosmetic. But our goal is to give you a car that is complete, fully functional, but we do not, and repeat, we do not deal with purely cosmetic issues. That's what reconditioning means to us.
Okay, so the next section here is how to EV. Please continue to ask questions in the chat for Adam. He'll be happy to answer them as we move forward here. So this next section is mostly about charging at home and on the road. So next slide, please. People are worried about charging for good reason. It's really important to understand how you're going to charge your EV. For most people, 80 to 90% of your charging is going to be done at home or at work, or close to home or at work. At home, you can just plug the charger that comes with your EV into a standard 120-volt outlet, like we discussed. There are no install costs besides perhaps a heavy-duty, appropriately gauged extension cord, and it will give you 40, 50 miles in 10 hours when it's parked. In the Bay Area, on average, people drive 25 miles a day, so this solution works great for most people. I'll just plug this. Peninsula Clean Energy did a study of all the people who live on the peninsula in their service area, and they learned for 94% of people, based on their driving habits, plugging into level 1 is enough. Everybody wants to get level 2 because it feels like I want to charge it fast. But I'll tell you, we have one level 1 at home and one level 2. For most of the time, the level 1 is ample. When we're using level 2, our car is typically charging for 1 or 2 hours, and that's it. So just doing it in a longer time frame with a level 1 is fine for most of our driving. Another thing to think about when we only had level 1 is we would do most of our, charging at home. And once in a while, like once a month, we would go to a fast charger if we needed it. But not necessary very often. Anyhow, if you do drive more than 40 miles a day, a good option is to see if you can charge at work. And if not, you may want to purchase a home charging station for level 2 charging. You'll get about 25 miles an hour, so you can easily go from 10% to 80% of your charge overnight. I do want to point out, though, that charging an EV is different from filling up a gas car. When I had a gas car, I would go to the station, to the gas station once a week, fill it up all the way. It would just, when it got down to 1/8, I'd go back. With an EV, I just plug it in and I set the computer on the car to only charge during the off-peak time of use rate time. So I work from home and I have solar. So I just say, start charging at 9 a.m. Stop charging at 3 p.m. That's when electricity becomes expensive. And that's ample for us. But it's really important to understand, even when you get an EV, you can call PG&E or your CCA and give them the VIN number of your EV, and you can get on a special EV time of use rate. So it's half the cost to charge between midnight and 3 p.m. versus charging between 4 and 9 p.m. when it's very expensive. That goes for all of your electricity. So, recommending run your dishwasher during these time of use off-peak times. Do your laundry in off-peak if you can, as much as you can. Anyway, the thing about getting level 2, really, it's about getting a 240-volt outlet set up close to where you charge your car. And so we can't really tell you how much that costs because it has to do with all the wiring and conduits that have to travel between your breaker box and where you're going to have the outlet. And that's different for most people. For us, it's like the opposite end of the the house. Like, exactly. We have to run them. The electrician had to run them, diagonally across. And that was fine. Once you have that 240-volt outlet installed, then it's just a matter of, you could go to a big box store, you could even buy online a charging station. And with a lot of EVs, you don't even need a charging station. You just need an adapter for the 240-volt out. You just plug in, get an adapter, and then you can plug it into the 240-volt outlet. That's what we did. We've never owned a charging station at home. We just have that adapter that clicks onto the cable that came with the EV when we bought it, and we just plug that into the 240. So super easy. Charging away from home is easy. It's getting easier all the time. We now have in California 200,000 public chargers, more than we have gas station pumps. And by 2030, our state goal is to have 1 million. So everybody, cities, counties, businesses, everybody is working on getting more EV charging available for people so it's easy. Okay, so when you're on a road trip, you will want to fast charge with a level 3 charger. And it's the fastest charging available. There are currently 3 standards, as you can see here. The one to the left is the old Nissan Leaf standard. So if you get an old Nissan Leaf, you would use the CHAdeMO system. The one on the right is the Tesla standard. The one in the middle is the CCS standard that a lot of EVs have had in the past. But as I mentioned, all EVs are now moving toward the Tesla standard, which is now the North American charging standard. You can get adapters so that you can any car can use the Tesla supercharging stations. So it's becoming so much easier. I drive to LA a lot, and when I first drove to LA like 6 years ago, we really had to kind of plan it out. But now there are EV chargers on both sides of the freeway, the 5, the 101, whichever way you want to go. It's super easy. And the good thing with Tesla supercharging stations is that they typically have lots of charging stations. Some of the places like on Highway 5 have like 100 Tesla chargers. So you don't have to wait in line. So it makes it super easy. Okay, next slide. So once you start driving electric, it's ideal to charge your EV from rooftop solar. There is no longer a federal tax credit available, but it can actually save you a lot of money to go solar. It can really help in many ways. But even if you don't have solar, that's okay too, because utilities and CCA have clean energy options as well as these reduced time of use rates. So cleaner and more affordable electricity. I'll give you a comparison. Where I live in Marin County, and I have MCE, and they have either 60% renewable energy or a plan with 100% renewable energy. And PG&E has 36% renewable energy on a good day. So if you care about having clean energy, then you will, most of you are probably getting your electricity from one of these alternative electricity providers. You probably don't even know it because you get your bill from PG&E because they provide your gas and they deliver the electricity. We go into more detail on this in some of the other webinars, and I'm happy to take more questions about this. Okay, next. So there are several EV charging solutions for people who live in apartments and condos, and more solutions are coming all the time. If a charging station is not available, people charge by plugging into a standard 120-volt outlet if it's available and allowed. There are new smart outlets that are inexpensive solutions to charging that also handle the billing. So you would just kind of start the charging session from your phone, end it from your phone, and you have attached your credit card to it. So you're paying for the electricity that you use, which might be $10 to $20 a month. Much better than going to the gas station. A lot of people charge at work if that's available, and that's becoming more and more available. And people charge at public fast chargers. On average, fast charging will get you from 10 to 80% of your battery in 30 minutes. With some of the older cars, it takes a little longer. Like the older Chevy Bolts, it's more like 45 minutes. But with some of the newer cars, a lot of the newer cars, it's under 20 minutes. So like when I go on a road trip, I'll drive to LA. So just to give you an idea, I'll drive like 3 hours, get out and charge for 20 minutes. I drive for another 3 hours, charge for 20 minutes, maybe before the Grapevine. And that's it. I use the restroom. I get something to drink. I might stop for lunch. Easy peasy. Like it's become so much easier, truly. Yeah. And yeah, if you don't have EV charging where you live now or where you work now, advocate for it. The more people ask for it, the more people will be bringing this amenity to where you work or live. All right, next.
There are a couple of questions on. I don't know if you want to address these about charging in the chat box. You want to talk? I can talk about those if you want.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, the first one is cost, and maybe you know more about this than I do, Annika. But basically, home charging is, especially the right time of day, is a lot cheaper, and maybe a quarter, maybe a fifth of the price of gas, something like that. Home charging during the bad times of day, I think, is still better, although electricity prices have gone up, but maybe half the price of gas or something like that, depending on where gas goes. Public charging is much more, fast charging can be much more expensive. I don't think it approaches the price of gas yet, especially with gas is going up. But I think, there's some places that you can go fast charging and pay probably, 3/4 the price of gas, I'm guessing, if you just don't do it at the right place at the right time. But I would say if you charge at home, particularly charging at home most of the time, and charge at home during the right times of day, it's going to be a small fraction of the price of gas, typically, on that. And then let's talk about charging levels at 20 to 80%. This is one where we haven't done enough research on this. As I said, the enemy of batteries is heat. Fast charging up to 100% is a bad idea, so I definitely would not do that. Home charging in a mild climate to 100%. Well, I would say, just to be blunt, I do it. My daughter needs to go to the city, and I want to make sure she has plenty of charge. I say, yeah, charge it up. I think my thinking and based on anecdotes is that regular 240 volt or 120 volt charging to 100% is not much of a problem. But again, I don't have a lot of scientific data on that. But I don't think that's a provision that you have to worry about too much if you're home charging. That's my experience.
Not at all. Yeah. Great. Okay, next slide. So taking a road trip is getting easier all the time. There are thousands of public charging sites that provide fast charging, and using apps like PlugShare and a better route planner, Google Maps, Apple Maps now, you can map out your trip and find chargers along the way. Electrify America, EVgo, Tesla now with its Next network, that everybody can use, and ChargePoint are some of the more common charging networks. I have all of them. I have all the apps on my phone because it's cheaper to pay through your app than to use a credit card. You can't use a credit card at all of them, but it's better. It's kind of like when you go to a particular grocery store and they have like deals if you're a member. It's kind of like that. You get better prices if you have the app and you have a member, and you're a member. Some of them actually offer you a little card that you can use, like a credit card, but I found that the app works the best. I've tested all of the fast charging stations in Marin County multiple times, and that seems to be the easiest way to connect to an EV charger. With public charging, we do recommend that you practice a couple times locally before you head out on a road trip. You don't want to be sitting in the hot desert or on Highway 5 or something, trying to figure out how to charge and using the app. So prepare yourself before you go on a road trip. It's not that hard. It's just that you want to be prepared, and especially the first time. Once you've done a road trip, it's so much easier. Then you know how it works, but it really, a little bit of a learning curve the first time. And when taking a road trip, sometimes hotels offer free level 2 charging, so you can charge while you're there sleeping. That's kind of handy. I have also experienced, like if I do Airbnb or via Vrbo, I'll ask them, "Hey, I have an EV. Is it possible to charge when I'm there?" And they're like, "Absolutely." So I typically will bring an extension cord and my charging cable with me, and I just plug in when I'm there. Nobody has ever said no. In fact, one time they were like, "We'll set up an extension cord for you." So that's a really nice thing too. That's pretty handy. Next slide. All right. While we still have a lot of people here, before I talk about this a little more, I am going to, let me talk about this, then I'll do the poll. I have a quick poll, but I would like to thank you all for attending the program. Wherever you are in your journey to an EV, whether you're interested in a used or a new one, if you can make the switch to driving electric now, this is a great opportunity. It's a great time to stop paying at the pump and enjoy a better driving experience. The sooner, the better. And if you're not ready now, could we have your support by pledging to make your next car electric? Our biggest ask really is, please don't buy a new gas car. It will be on this earth emitting carbon and air pollution for 12 to 15 years. And we have to stop doing that now. Again, Happy Earth Week. We are really trying to reduce emissions as much as possible. So I just would like to let you know a little bit more about who we are and what we do. So we are here to help you get an EV, basically. We offer these exclusive EV discounts on new EVs through April currently. We have our pre-owned EV savings campaign through May to help you with a concierge service, make it very easy to get an EV, the EV that's right for your budget and lifestyle. We put on EV shows, EV and e-bike shows. So you see the calendar right there. We're in Vallejo, Mill Valley, San Anselmo, Palo Alto, and Novato. Within the next month, it's a busy time, Earth Month. We have ongoing webinars, so you'll be seeing more webinars on our events page. And because you signed up for this webinar, you will automatically be added to our newsletter. You can unsubscribe if you would like. It's easy. I wanted to just thank everybody so much for coming today and for your interest in going electric. I'd like to thank our partner, Adam and Emotion Autos, for partnering with us on the pre-owned EV savings campaign. I would like to thank our funders, Access Clean California, the City of Palo Alto Utilities, and Transportation Authority of Marin for sponsoring this webinar, and for the City of Palo Alto Utilities for sponsoring our both of our programs that are going on right now.